Wonder he can't run for another 4 years. Absolutely exhausted. Thank you very much indeed. Let's talk to a man that knows a thing or two about the law, Stephen Barrett, barrister and a writer. Stephen, very good morning to you. Welcome to Morning Glory.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. I mean, so many questions to ask you this morning, Stephen. I mean, the noises coming out of both the leader, the chief of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Mark Rowley, when he said he was going to come after people, particularly in America, for writing things on social media that he didn't like. Keir Starmer talking about going after people as well. I mean, obviously, I think everybody would agree that locking up the riots is a good idea. It might discourage others from doing the same, also a good idea. But the words coming out of their mouths about the kind of the social media aspect of things is a little worrying, I would say.
Yes, and I think people are scared. And Mike, that happens because most people are decent people. So most people don't commit crimes, right. And most people don't commit crimes because they are fundamentally good. They don't do, you know, I don't commit crimes. And the reason I don't commit crimes is not because I fear the police, it's because I want to think of myself as a decent, you know, upstanding person. I want to think of myself as morally good. I want to believe I set a good example to young people. I want to believe that I'm a decent person. So the idea that you might accidentally commit a crime, which is sort of what all of the PR is suggesting, and I'm not terribly convinced. So I think that there's an active duty on the government to explain what the law is to people. Yeah. I think that people have every right to know what the law is, particularly what the criminal law is, since it has such a disproportionate impact on their life. And we have a principle in criminal law that mistake of the law is no defense. Right. So I think that what goes along with that is a duty on the state to explain what the law is. And it seems to me that the state is failing in that duty because it's causing a lot of confusion about what might be, might not be a crime on social media.
But do you think that might be deliberate? Because I think they want people to be confused. They want people to be frightened of doing something. Therefore, they think it will stop people doing anything.
Well, the fact that it's happening at all is, I think, a breach of a constitutional duty by the government. Yeah. If it's deliberate, that simply makes it much more egregious. I mean, that is simply not the state that we are supposed to live in. We are a mature, liberal democracy, and we are not some sort of threatening autocracy with dictatorial leaders who get to terrify the populace. Well, one of the nice quotes about democracy is that it's supposed to be the system where the leaders live in fear of the people, not where the people live in fear of the leaders. Right. So if they're changing that, then that is really quite wrong.
Well, I think that's what is concerning an awful lot of people. Have a look at this from Keir Starmer and tell me what you make of it afterwards.
In relation to online and social media, the first thing I'd say is this is not a law-free zone. And I think that's clear from the prosecutions and sentencing. Today we're due sentencing for online behaviour. That's a reminder to everyone that whether you're directly involved or whether you're remotely involved, you're culpable and you will be put before the courts if you've broken the law. And so that's happening today, that sentencing. I do agree that we're going to have to look more broadly at social media after this disorder, but the focus at the moment has to be on dealing with the disorder and making sure that our communities are safe and secure.
See, I'm not clear what he means there by remotely involved. Now, he could be using remotely in the sense of not physically there, or he could be using the term remotely, meaning in some way tangentially connected to, right?
Yes, well, he's not assisting the people. So that clip is not in any way helpful because it doesn't, in a mature way, explain to people what the actual rules are. Right. And we're reaching the point where the people now have every entitlement to be told what the rules are. They have every entitlement to be treated like grown-ups and to be able to understand the situation, not to be threatened like they are naughty children. Yeah. And remember, Keir Starmer does not have the best track record on understanding the law on social media. He pushed forward, he single-handedly pushed forward the prosecution of that chap who made a joke on social media about Nottingham Airport, and that was overturned. That was wrong. He made a mistake. So we're at a point where the Prime Minister does not have the best grip on these laws himself, and the people actually have every entitlement to know what the law is. We simply cannot live in a state where what the criminal law is somehow kept secret from people, and then people are just terrified to do or say anything.
Well, exactly.
That's not the country that we live in.
No. And there's something else I wanted to ask you about. I don't know if you've seen this, and this is actually on social media. It's the Crown Prosecution Service's own actual Twitter account, and it says this: recent violence has shaken our communities. We are working hard to support you 24/7. We are meeting with local panels to drive our response. We're doing everything we can. We stand with you. I mean, what does that mean? And what on earth are they talking about?
I have absolutely no idea. Again, that word communities. I mean, what on earth does that mean? It just, I don't understand that at all.
Right.
The Crown Prosecution Service is there to serve the whole country. Mike, I've banged on for quite a while that impartiality is breaking down. I mean, that is a nakedly political statement.
Yeah.
Why on earth our Crown Prosecution Service is making nakedly political statements, I simply don't know. But that is a collapse in impartiality.
Right, and a lot of people are asking me questions like, who are local? What is a local panel? What does that even mean? You know, I mean, there's all sorts of questions that we could ask the CPS, but you know, I don't know if they'd answer them.
Well, this is the point, that they've invented that term. So they have created this idea, this concept of whatever a local panel is, but they haven't bothered to tell us. Now that is inherently infantilizing. If I just go around inventing new words and then don't tell you what they mean, then I've taken power away from you. And I really, we need to have a fundamental look at the country and where things are, because at the moment, you know, we're just being treated like children and scared, I think unnecessarily.
Exactly. And I mean, Yvette Cooper this morning in the Telegraph talking about how she wants to bring back respect for the police, and she doesn't think that the people in this country at the moment do respect the police. Well, there's a reason for that, because the police have been behaving in a way which is not what we think the police should do. You know, we see the police arresting people for rioting. That's what they should be doing. They should also be arresting them for shoplifting. They should also be arresting them for knife crime. They should also be arresting them for a whole egregious set of circumstances and crimes that are being committed on a daily basis. But if your house gets burgled, there's a pretty good chance they won't arrest anyone. They won't arrest anyone for stealing your car, for stealing your what. You know, the list goes on. They haven't been arresting people. That's why people don't respect them.
And Sir Robert Peel knew how to instill respect for the police. And if people want to instill respect for the police, then they go back to what are called the Peelian principles and return to those ideas. We've lived through a very shallow and narcissistic age, Mike. There have been numerous examples in the last few years. Parliament debased itself with the pretend court that convicted Boris before he'd even met them, and then they demanded respect, and it's simply not true. It seems to be that those who are in charge have forgotten or simply don't understand. You cannot demand respect. You can only earn respect. There's no, you know, of course, in a dictatorial state, the dictator can demand respect, and people will pretend to respect the dictator, but they won't actually respect the dictator. You can only earn respect. And I worry that has been lost, and that we're going to move into a very brittle period where all sorts of powers and threats of force are used to sort of get us to a situation which is going to be very scary for ordinary people, and I think unnecessarily scary.
Final question on the sentencing of some of these rioters. They've been getting some pretty hefty sentences, which again, something that we haven't seen in the justice system really. We see more stories about people getting light sentences, people not going to prison at all, people getting let out early. You know, suddenly we've rediscovered punishment in this country, never mind crime. What's going on there?
Well, the people can trust the judges. So I like to reassure people on that one, that our judiciary is still, our judges are still the best in the world. What's actually going on, Mike, is that politicians are mouthing off about sentences. It doesn't mean that they've actually been handed down in any court. We've had all sorts of declarations by politicians that the politicians are meddling in our justice system in a way that, I mean, po-faced, they told us that it was independent and that they weren't supposed to do this. Yet within a few weeks, they're already backseat driving everything, and claiming that they're going to get all sorts of offences. I mean, this is simply ridiculous. And can I just remind everybody that there was a riot in Hare Hills as well? And I watched a bus being set on fire.
Yeah.
And I understand that there are only 4 arrests from that event.
Yeah.
That seems remarkable. You know, it's just what is happening in the inconsistent application of rules. And I think we're going to... I suspect things usually get worse before they get better, but we are going to have to look at all of this again. And if we want to be a grown-up country which has rules that we all know in advance, that applies them fairly and consistently without fear or favour to all of us, then I'm afraid we're going to need to fix a few things, because at the moment the country's just doesn't seem to be functioning like that.
No, absolutely right. Stephen, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Stephen Barrett, barrister and writer, with a few very, very interesting answers to some quite difficult questions that we're all asking at the moment. Exactly how far does this crackdown on social media go? Exactly what does Keir Starmer mean by, you know, various sentences that he's just uttered there, where he talks about remotely involved in things? When you're remotely involved in something, that means that you're still perhaps making a crime happen. Very difficult to know. Nick in Woking says, I want to know who the community leaders are and are they elected? Samantha says, so they cannot extradite the killer of Harry June, but the Commissioner of the Met hopes to extradite Elon Musk. Apparently so. And with these new laws coming in and our freedom of speech being taken away from us, I'm struggling to see how your show will look, Mike, says Mags. Will we see you with a gag in your mouth? Certainly not.